His eyes widened. "You said you were next door?" She nodded. Then her eyes widened. "Wait, you live here?" He looked down at himself, then gave her a grin. "I don't just walk in and shower at other people's houses." Hell, he loved the shower he'd put in upstairs. He didn't even stick around and shower at women's houses when he spent the night. Jill's eyes dropped from his face to his naked torso, and she seemed to lose her focus again. Laughing softly, Zeke again tipped her chin up to look him in the eye. "What were you doing next door?" "Checking out the house? But there's not much to check out. The contractor hasn't done much with it." "Why were you checking to see what the contractor had gotten done?" His heart was hammering harder now, but he was starting to connect some dots. And he felt the resultant line surprising, but exciting. "It's my new house?" Holy shit. That was awesome. Jill was the veterinarian. He'd been corresponding with her via text and email, but her texts had been about the penguins, and he had known her as Dr. Morris. Her email address had been jmorris11, so hadn't given her name away either. He hadn't put that together last night. But now, he was definitely putting this together now. This meant the woman who had rocked his world last night wasn't just passing through town. In fact, she wasn't going anywhere for a very long time. "You're the new penguin veterinarian." She was clearly a little surprised. "You've heard of me?" He chuckled. "Definitely. I'm related to the people who own Boys of the Bayou Gone Wild, for one thing." She tipped her head. "Really? So you know Griffin and Charlie?" "Charlie's my cousin. Of course, I also happened to be the one who built the penguins their new habitat." Her eyes went round. "You? What? You're kidding." He lifted a hand to run it through his wet hair. Her eyes followed the motion, seemingly riveted on his arm. He wasn't sure if it was the tattoo or what exactly, but he did know that Jillian was fascinated with his ink. She had traced all of it with her fingers and tongue last night more than once, and he had a lot of ink. He dropped his hand and reached for her. "I'm also the guy who's remodeling your house." He ran his hand up and down her arm. She didn't pull away, but she didn't lean in to his touch either. It seemed that she was far more focused on the conversation. "I thought that was two different guys." "Nope. I own Landry Construction. My cousin Mitch takes lead on a lot of the animal enclosures, but I'm the one you've been texting with about the penguins. And I do most of the building and remodeling around here." He tugged her a little closer. "I've been the one emailing you questions about that house for weeks." She winced. "Yeah, sorry about that." "While, on the other hand, you gave me very detailed information for the penguins." She lifted a shoulder. "I care a lot more where the penguins are living than where I will be." "Clearly. But now that you're here, we can finish your house." Her eyes widened again, and she stared at him. "We're going to be neighbors." He let his grin grow slowly as he stroked his hands up and down her arms slower. "Yep." She tipped her head back and groaned. But it wasn't one of the hot, oh my god, yes groans she'd been giving him last night. This was more of an, oh crap groan. "You're clearly not as excited about that as I am," he said dryly. Her head came up, and she met his eyes. Now there was no roaming over his half-naked body. She shook her head. "It just feels complicated to live next door to the guy I'm hooking up with once a month." He was confused. "We're hooking up once a month?" "That was what I was going to propose anyway. Friends with benefits, you know? After last night, I thought that could be kind of fun." "That would be fun. Very, very fun," he said. "But why only once a month? I'm up for that kind of fun way more often." "Sure. Then it turns into more like dating or a relationship or something rather than just getting together for hot sex. And I take it the relationship and dating thing is something you're trying to avoid? Very much so. And living next door to you means that we'll see each other occasionally, and since you'll be saving me from alligators on a regular basis, we could potentially turn into actual friends. And that makes the hooking up even more complicated. Having the sun up hadn't made him feel any less attracted to, slightly confused by, surprised by, and definitely amused by this woman. But friends with benefits has friends right in the title. This all sounded good to him. Having a neighbor he could get naked with whenever the urge struck, who didn't want anything else from him, sounded pretty damned great. I'm just really not interested in a relationship, Jill went on. I'm not good at them, and I don't really have time for them. And I don't put effort into them, which ends up bothering the other person after a while. Which is understandable, I'm not blaming anyone, I just really like to have everything laid out and everyone on the same page. And I like sex, and it would be really perfect to be able to have amazing sex, but only when it's convenient. Zeke gave a soft snort. Convenient hot sex. It really did sound pretty amazing. I don't see why we can't have that. Hell, being neighbors makes the whole thing even more convenient, right? He asked. It couldn't be an all-night thing like last night. I don't have time for that very often. If you just want to walk through my door only wearing a robe and nothing underneath to save time and bend over the back of my sofa, I'm not gonna kick you out, Cher, he told her. He was half teasing, but only half. She finally gave him a hint of a smile. I can just show up on your front porch anytime I need an orgasm that I don't want to do myself? Something about the way she said that, whether it was the word orgasm or the mischievous little twinkle in her eye, or how damned easy she was making it all sound, made heat clench in Zeke's gut. He reached up and cupped the side of her head. He brought her in close and put his mouth against hers. Any fucking time. Then he kissed her.